Hey guys, everyone's day is going well. Today, we're gonna be taking a look at the MK1 YoYos and ThrowSpiral SLIVER. Honestly, when I first got this yo, I thought it was just called the silver because I got it in silver, but then I realized it was the sliver, so. I'm super excited to talk a little bit more about this very unique yo, so without any further ado, let's jump right into the review. Okay, so first things first, I gotta give a quick shout out to ThrowSpiral for sending me this yo. It was really generous of them to do so, and I'll have all of their links and contact info in the description down below, as well as MK1 YoYo, since this is a collaboration yo-yo.
Before I get any further into the video, if you guys are interested in picking up your very first yo-yo or any of these pro metal yo-yos, click the very first link in my bio. I've got an awesome yo-yo store with just about every single thing on sale. Be sure to check that out, and let's get on with the rest of the video.
In order to get kind of a baseline idea as to what this yo is all about, I'm gonna include the specs of this yo on the screen. Definitely pay attention to them because they're pretty irregular and definitely not your normal specs of a yo-yo. Okay, so as you saw from the clip before, this is definitely a pretty irregular yo-yo. The width is very narrow, and the gap width, especially for where the string can actually land, is super narrow. The diameter is coming in a little bit on the smaller side, so this is definitely like your undersized yo-yo. However, it fits really nicely in the pocket, and I'll talk a little bit more about why this yo is so undersized. So according to MK1 YoYos and ThrowSpiral, this is supposed to be kind of like a very fun and toss around yo-yo, one that you just kind of do fun tricks with, not really for competition, but also a yo that performs decently well. And so it's really interesting to see that they put together this design. First things first, this design is a bit of a feat of engineering. I mean, look at the simplicity of it. It really is so interesting how it looks so clean and simplistic. However, there's definitely a lot going on because this yo is actually a good performer. So I guess let's just take an analysis of the actual shape and all that good stuff. So shape, super narrow as I described before. We got these gigantic beefy rims in this H shape, and then just a kind of straight slope down to the bearings. So as I mentioned, there's very little area to actually land the yo on the string. The trapeze gap is pretty narrow, so it's definitely a factor to consider. And then if you move on over to the cup, there's not really much I can talk about. I mean, you got a thick rim right there. That's definitely going to add some nice rim weight, and there's just a very completely flat center of the cup. This yo does have a completely smooth matte finish all around it, so it feels great. But in general, it's kind of hard to talk about the appearance of this yo because it's just so simplistic. One last quick thing I want to mention is that this yo actually does come in the box with a responsive bearing, so you can play with this yo both unresponsive and responsive. Personally, I enjoyed playing with it a lot unresponsively, and so that's kind of what I reviewed this yo using. They also mentioned in the description that this yo is mainly used unresponsive, but if you want to, you can play with it responsive. Okay, so we can now talk a little bit about how this yo actually plays on the string. This is definitely a very unique and interesting yo. So when you throw it down, you're immediately gonna kind of hear the cool sound that it makes. This is a very cool sounding yo. It feels very fun. But yeah, first things first, this is a fun yo. This is definitely one that you throw around, feels super solid to hold in the hand. It's really comfortable to hold, and in your pocket, it fits super nicely. This is kind of that perfect yo for doing just kind of like fun play around tricks. So you know those tricks that like obviously aren't using competition, but are just kind of fun and satisfying to do. This yo is perfect for them because it definitely spins for a nice long time. It's definitely a very solid and stable yo-yo. It does have like extremely high walls and a very narrow gap to actually land the string in. However, like I said before, this yo isn't meant to be like your horizontal insane competition yo-yo. This is just kind of a fun toss around yo-yo that can still perform your tricks. And so I think it really fits that bill perfectly. It's a nice long spinning yo-yo. So if you're gonna do a trick that's maybe not the easiest on the yo, it's kind of one of those fun tricks, it can still power through it. It's got a lot of stability and spin time. However, in general, as you can see, I was still able to hit most of my tricks. I definitely required a little bit more accuracy because I needed to land it in that gap, but it really did perform well. This is kind of a similar yo-yo to the SF doorknob, if you guys remember that one. It's kind of one of those yo-yos that's undersized, nice to put in your pocket, can still hit a decent amount of tricks. It's got a decent amount of rim weight in there. However, it's not like meant for competition or anything too crazy. One of the most underrated aspects of this yo, in my opinion, was the response system. This thing has a really well built response system. So just with some standard Sochi string, I was able to hit a lot of really clean and satisfying binds. Since this yo does have a lot of spin and it's actually got a lot of stability as well, it comes back to your hand with a surprisingly large amount of force for the fact that it's got a very irregular shape. However, I was really happy to report that my binds were nice and consistent, but the regens were also very nice and consistent. So the response system of this yo is very well suited for a normal kind of thickness of string. I also found that generally the weight of this yo was pretty middle of the road. So it doesn't really feel like super floaty or super solid and heavy either. It's very much in the middle. So when you're playing with it, it kind of feels like a nice and relaxed kind of chill yo that you can just kind of throw around, do some fun tricks with, maybe experiment around with some new things and still kind of power through them. One area that I think you could actually use this yo would be for practicing competition. So if you really want to improve on your consistency and try to become like even more consistent on stage and everything like that, this could be a nice option for that because of the shape. With such a narrow shape, it's a lot harder to land your tricks. There's no kidding about that. It's more difficult to land a trick in the gap with yo-yo just because it's so narrow. But if you're really trying to work on consistency, I bet that if you use this yo-yo for a while, practicing your routine, and then switch to a kind of more competition-based yo-yo with a wider profile, you would find that you are much more consistent with that wider yo-yo because you practice with something more difficult. It's kind of like the idea where baseball players will use a kind of weight on their bat before they swing because it's so much harder, because then when they pick up the actual bat, it feels so much lighter and they feel much faster with it. So I could definitely see this yo-yo being very useful for that kind of aspect. Grinds with this yo-yo are just fine. I mean, this yo-yo does have a lot of friction with your finger when you're doing finger grinds because the shape is just so narrow. However, I found that talon and thumb grinds were very, very satisfying. You can actually lock into a nice one with that lip right there. Super fun to do. Finger spins are not the best with this yo. I mean, you're just gonna rotate around the middle over and over because it's got that very flat center there. So I kind of avoid doing those. But then again, this yo isn't really made for doing finger spins. All right, so that's about it for my review of the SLIVER. In general, this is a really nice and solid yo. It's super fun to play around with. It definitely has a narrow gap, but it's perfect for those kind of fun, just like playful tricks that you can do with a yo-yo. It's got a surprisingly large amount of stability and actually a pretty solid spin time, so I don't think you'll be disappointed with it at all. Once again, a thank you to MK1 YoYos and ThrowSpiral for sending me this yo-yo and making this entire video possible. All right, so that's about it for my review of the SLIVER. If you guys did enjoy, be sure to leave a like, and also if you guys are new here and haven't seen my videos before, hit that subscribe button so you can see when I post a new video. I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Peace.